Have you ever wondered why you keep sabotaging your own life? Why you repeat patterns you swore you'd never repeat? Why the same type of person keeps entering your life, hurting you in the same way? It's not because you're broken. It's because there's something inside you that's still unseen. And it's not just personal, it's universal. Carl Jung believed that every person carries a shadow. Not just a metaphorical shadow, but a psychological force. It holds all the parts of yourself you reject, deny, or pretend don't exist. Your anger, your envy, your fears, your desires. But here's the catch. The more you repress them, the more control they gain. Jung didn't just warn us about the personal shadow. He also spoke of something even more dangerous, the collective shadow. This is when an entire society begins to project its worst qualities outward, refusing to admit them within. And when that happens, history shows us, again and again, the result is violence, extremism, and collapse. Let's begin with something simple. Think about your day. Imagine someone cuts in line in front of you. You feel your face get warm, a flash of irritation, but you smile, say nothing, and suppress the urge to scream. Now imagine this happens every day with your boss, your partner, even strangers. You keep burying the anger, thinking, I'm a good person, I don't get mad. But one day, you explode at the wrong person, at the wrong time, and you wonder, where did that come from? That was your shadow. The shadow is created when we label parts of ourselves as unacceptable. As children, if we cried too much, we were told to toughen up. If we showed anger, we were called aggressive. If we questioned things, we were labeled difficult. So we learned, some parts of me are not allowed. And so, we buried them. Jung said that the shadow isn't evil in itself. It's just unconscious. It's wild, primal, untamed. And like a wolf chained in a basement, the more you ignore it, the more vicious it becomes. But here's the paradox. The shadow isn't just the bad stuff. It also contains your power, your instinct, your passion, your ability to say no, to protect yourself, to take risks, to become whole. By rejecting your shadow, you don't become good. You become weak, and worse, you become blind to your own darkness. And that makes you dangerous. You see, most people don't believe they have a shadow. They say things like, I'm not angry, I'm just passionate. I'm not jealous, I just care. But the shadow always finds a way out. If it can't come through your words, it'll come through your actions. Passive aggression, sabotage, cruel jokes disguised as just kidding. Or it'll come through your projections. This is when we see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. You hate that person because they're so arrogant. But maybe it's your own unexpressed desire to be confident. You envy their success, but maybe it's because you've denied your own ambition. Jung called projection the most dangerous psychological mechanism because it keeps you blind. And when an entire society does this, we get scapegoats, witch hunts, wars, genocide. It starts small. We blame them, the outsiders, the other political party, the other race, the other religion. We say they're the problem, but in truth, we're looking at a mirror. Jung wrote after both world wars. He saw firsthand what collective shadow looked like, how a civilized society could turn barbaric in a few years, how good people could commit atrocities because they were possessed, possessed by the part of themselves they refused to acknowledge. He He didn't believe evil came from monsters. He believed evil came from people who convinced themselves they were only good. Asterisk, so how do you know when your shadow is acting out? Here's a clue. It often feels like a strong emotional reaction that doesn't quite match the situation. Let me show you a real example. There's a woman, let's call her Anna. She's a kind, intelligent mother, always trying to be patient with her kids, but one day her 6-year-old daughter throws a tantrum. Anna yells, loud, shocking even herself. Then she breaks down in tears, whispering, "I promised I'd never become my mother. What just happened?" Anna's shadow formed in childhood from years of being emotionally neglected was triggered by her daughter's emotions. She wasn't yelling at her child. She was yelling at the part of herself she had to repress to survive. The part that was once told, "Be quiet. Stop crying. Be a good girl." This is shadow projection in its most intimate form. When your pan-and-healed gets passed on like an emotional inheritance, and unless we become conscious of it, we keep playing out our trauma, but in different costumes, different people, same wounds. That's why Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So let's pause and reflect. Who do you judge most harshly? Who triggers you in ways you can't explain? That's your shadow talking, and here's the terrifying part. The shadow doesn't just stay inside individuals. When enough people ignore it, it organizes itself into systems. Look around. Entire industries are built on shadow projection. Politics that thrive on fear. Advertising that feeds on insecurity. Social media that rewards outrage. Have you noticed how easy it is now to cancel someone, to dehumanize them in a comment thread, to turn real people into symbols of everything wrong with the world? That's not justice. That's the shadow collective, online and weaponized. Jung called this a psychic epidemic, a mass psychological condition where reason is hijacked. By emotional possession, we stop seeing people as individuals. We start seeing them as enemies. And when that happens, violence becomes not just justified, but righteous. In Nazi Germany, for example, many citizens weren't inherently evil. They were simply unconscious. They projected their fears, guilt, and resentment onto a group and then followed orders. It's chilling, but it's not new. History repeats because the unconscious repeats. And let's be honest today, we're not immune. We're more educated, more connected. But are we more conscious? When we laugh at someone's downfall online, when we shame someone for being too sensitive, when we suppress our anger until it bursts in ugly ways, we're still dancing with the shadow, but tanned. This is important. Jung didn't preach fear. He didn't say we should destroy the shadow. He said we must integrate it. That means bringing it into awareness, naming it, owning it, making peace with the parts of ourselves we've tried to exile, because only then can we be whole. Integration doesn't mean acting on every dark impulse. It means recognizing it and giving it a voice before it takes control. It means telling yourself, yes, I have envy. Yes, I have anger. Yes, I want to be seen. And that doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me human. When we do this work, we stop projecting. We stop blaming others for what we haven't healed in ourselves. And most importantly, we become harder to manipulate. A person who owns their shadow cannot be possessed by it. A society that embraces complexity cannot be ruled by extremism. That's the real freedom Jung offered. Not perfection, not purity, but consciousness. So the next time you feel irrational rage or unbearable shame, don't just run from it. Ask, what is this part of me trying to show me? The answer might be ugly, it might be painful, but it might also be the key to your transformation. So how exactly do we begin to work with the shadow? It starts with a brutal kind of honesty, not about others, but about yourself. Here's the first step. Jung encouraged observation without judgment. That means noticing your thoughts, reactions, dreams, even your fantasies, without instantly labeling them as bad or wrong. Let's try this. Think of a moment when you felt jealous. Maybe it was a friend's success. Maybe it was someone getting the love you secretly crave. Instead of suppressing it, what if you said, "This is jealousy. I don't like how it feels, but it's part of me." You'd be amazed how powerful that simple acknowledgement is, because the shadow feeds on secrecy, and the moment you name it to weaken its grip. Jung called this bringing the unconscious to consciousness. It doesn't mean you act on your envy. It means you listen to it. Ask, what does this jealousy want me to see about myself? Am I unfulfilled? Do I long to be recognized? Am I denying my own needs? Suddenly, the emotion becomes a map, not a monster. Let's look at another common shadow, rage. So many people walk through life simmering with unspoken fury. Why? Because we were taught that anger is dangerous, especially if you're a woman or raised in a polite family. But the truth is, anger is a signal. It tells you a boundary has been crossed, or that a part of you has been ignored for too long. Jung warned, if you don't listen to your anger, it becomes resentment, and resentment is shadowed with a mask. It pretends to be passive, but inside, it's boiling hot. So what do we do with this? Jung would say, you dialogue with it. Write it out. Talk to it. Imagine the part of you that's furious sitting across from you. Ask it, what are you trying to protect? You'll be surprised. Often just wants to be heard. And then there's the shadow of neediness, the craving to be liked, to be chosen, to be seen as good. This one's sneaky because society rewards it, but deep down it creates a cage. You become addicted to external validation. You become terrified of saying no. You lose your center. Working with this shadow means risking rejection. It means saying, I might disappoint someone, but I won't abandon myself again. That's where individuation begins. Individuation is Jung's term for the process of becoming truly yourself, not the self that society approves, or that your parents imagined, but the one that includes every part of you, even the ones you've been running from. It's not a straight path. It's messy, it's painful, but it's the only path to psychological wholeness. And it starts not with grand declarations, but with small, courageous acts. Saying no when you usually say yes. Telling a truth you've been afraid to speak. Admitting to yourself, I'm not okay, but I'm ready to understand why. These are moments when your ego steps aside and your deeper self begins to emerge. Because here's what Jung discovered. Your shadow isn't evil, it's wounded. It contains power, creativity, passion, everything you disowned to survive. And when you integrate it, you don't just become more balanced, you become more real. Let's not sugarcoat it. This work isn't glamorous. There's no instant reward. You won't get applause for admitting you're jealous, scared, or angry. But what you will get is freedom. Freedom from compulsive behaviors, from toxic relationships, from pretending to be someone you're not. You'll begin to trust yourself because you know what lives inside you. Nothing is hidden anymore, and that is rare. That is powerful. That is what makes a human truly conscious. So next time you feel an emotion rising that you've been trained to hide, pause. Don't bury it. Don't explode. Just say, I see you. Let's talk. That's not weakness. That's shadow integration. And it might just be the most courageous conversation you'll ever have. Asterisk. There's a quote by Jung that haunts you once you understand it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think about that. Most of us don't realize we're being driven by shadows, by unmet needs, buried fears, and suppressed emotions. We just think, this is who I am. This is my life. But it's not. It's your unexamined past disguised as personality. It's your shadow wearing your face. You think you're choosing your partner, your career, your beliefs, but are you, or are you reenacting old wounds, chasing approval, avoiding shame? The truth is painful, but liberating. We live inside stories we didn't write. Until we do the work. Jung's warning wasn't just psychological. It was existential. He saw what happens when a society represses its collective shadow. He saw it in Nazi Germany, where repressed resentment and national humiliation gave rise to mass projection, the hatred of the other. He saw it in religious extremism, where repressed desire turns into fanatic purity, and today, we still see it in cancel culture, in tribal politics, in online shaming mobs. The more we refuse to face our own darkness, the more we try to control everyone else's. It's no accident. That shadow work is uncomfortable. That's by design, because the ego doesn't want to change. It wants control. It wants certainty. And the shadow threatens that. But if you're still watching, it means part of you is ready to feel what's been numbed, ready to ask, what part of me have I been afraid to meet? Maybe it's your ambition, or your sexuality, or your rage, or your grief. Whatever it is, it's not your enemy. It's your doorway. Jung believed that every shadow holds a key to creativity, to passion, to power, to love, but only if you stop running from it, only if you sit with it, only if you're willing to say, I want to be whole, not perfect, whole. So here's the question we'll leave you with. What part of yourself have you spent your life trying to hide? And what if, just what if, that part is the one thing that could set you free? This is not the end. This is the beginning of INDIV, IDUATION, not a one-time breakthrough, but a slow, honest, ongoing revolution within yourself. And every time you face your shadow, you reclaim a piece of your soul. So maybe that anger you feel, that shame you carry, that voice you keep silencing, it's not there to destroy you. It's there to reunite you with yourself. Welcome to the work.